Hello there, very good evening. This is the weekend edition of Primetime News on TV1. On behalf of the Newsfirst, the voice of the people, I'm Martin Satyanesan. Let's start off with a look at your headlines for this evening.
Newsfirst headlines. Main sponsor.
Valuable Finance, best finance company.
Cardinal dismayed about the government's inability to serve justice to the victims of the April 21st attacks.
මේ රජය අපිට දුන්නු පොරොන්දු මේ පිළිබඳව එකක්වත් ඉෂ්ට කරලා නැති බව පැහැදිලිවම ප්‍රකාශ කරන්න පුළුවන්.
4 suspects arrested for the murder of a police constable. Houses of the suspects set ablaze. Many factions point out that the surcharge tax will result in the collapse of many companies.
මේ කරන්න යන්නේ පහත් දේශපාලන වැඩක්.
රුපියල් කෝටි 60000ක විතර මුදලක් තියෙනවා අය නොකල බදු මුදල්.
මේ ආණ්ඩුවෙන් පස්සේ බාණ්ඩාගාරයෙන් මෙසිල් රාජපක්ෂට දුන්නා ලනුව.
Ships draw near. Unloading of fuel begins. Will there be enough fuel to maintain an uninterrupted supply of power? Reports come to light regarding a shortage of medicine at the Apeksha hospital.
Your top story this evening. His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjit says the faith in justice being served to the victims of the April 21st attacks continues to dwindle with each passing day. The Cardinal pointed out that the justice system in the country is heading towards a crisis.
The book titled Tita was launched at the BMICH this morning. The book was compiled based on the content of the Presidential Commission report into the April 21st attacks. Reverend Father Lal Pushpadeva Fernando is the editor-in-chief of the book, which is a publication of the National Catholic Social Communication Centre. The president of the Bishops' Conference of Sri Lanka, Bishop Winston Fernando, was the chief guest at the launch ceremony. The president, who arrived in the island on Monday, the 22nd of April 2019, appoints a 3-member committee headed by Vijit Malalgoda. That was the first committee report. Afterwards, there was another parliamentary report that came out. The third report was by the Sectoral Oversight Committee on National Independence. The fourth is the massive book that is the report of the Presidential Commission. When the final volume of this report was presented, the current president appointed another committee. He appointed a cabinet subcommittee. Many reports were presented, but nothing was done. Should we be silent at a time like this, or should we rise up? Should we place a full stop here? First, read this book, and then we will put a stop to this.
අපි නිහඬ විය යුතුද මෙවන් මොහොතක නැත්නම් අපි අවදි විය යුතුද තිත තියමුද තිත තිබිය යුතු තැන පළමුව මේ පොත කියවන්න දෙවනුව තිත තියමු
මේ ප්‍රහාරය සිදු වෙනවා කියන එක පිළිබඳව හොඳින් දැනගෙන හිටියා බුද්ධි අංශවල නිලධාරීන් පොලිසියේ උසස් නිලධාරීන්.
Officers of the intelligence units were aware of this attack. High-ranking police officers were also aware of this. We have evidence to prove that. The Presidential Commission report clearly states that these individuals were aware of this attack. This government and the Attorney General have hidden the evidence presented in those reports. We have sent letters requesting for those volumes of this report. Both the previous government and the current government did not consider these requests and have continued to hide this information from us. Therefore, there is an issue in revealing the truth based on the information available in this report. We extremely regret the fact that the Attorney General's Department and the Attorney General are not taking proper action against certain individuals, even though the Presidential Commission report have named these individuals as those who were aware of the attack and still did nothing. The actions of the Attorney General's Department has come to a point where the victims are not getting justice. I can clearly state that this government has not fulfilled any of the promises that they had made.
ඒ ගැන අපි ඇත්ත වශයෙන්ම බලවත්සේ කනගාටුවට පත් වෙනවා. ඒ නිසා අපි මේ රජය අපිට දුන්නු පොරොන්දු මේ පිළිබඳව එකක්වත් ඉෂ්ට කරලා නැති බව පැහැදිලිවම ප්‍රකාශ කරන්න පුළුවන්.
Up next is Crime Watch.
Crime Watch.
4 suspects have been arrested in connection with the murder of a police constable in the Vitarandene area in Tangol. Meanwhile, a house considered to be of the suspects and a hotel under construction considered to be of the main suspect was burnt down earlier this morning. Police Constable Chaturanga Dilshan, who succumbed to his injuries recently, was attacked following a dispute between the officer's family members and a woman in the neighborhood. A dispute had arisen between both parties when they attended an event that was held at a hotel under construction in the neighborhood recently. According to the police, around 15 people at the event had attacked the police constable, his wife and his sibling. Police Constable Chaturanga Dilshan succumbed to his injuries while his brother is receiving treatment at the Karapiti Teaching Hospital with serious injuries. 34-year-old police constable Chaturanga Dilshan was attached to the tourist police division of the expressway stationed at the Kasagala exit.
Crime Watch.
The second interim report of the Presidential Commission appointed to look into the recommendations of the Presidential Commissions that probed human rights violations in the country has been submitted to the President.
Chairman of the Presidential Commission, AHMD Nawaz, handed over the interim report to the President at the Presidential Secretariat. President Rajapaksa appointed the Commission of Inquiry to investigate, inquire into and report or take necessary actions on findings of preceding commissions or committees appointed to investigate into human rights violations, serious violations of international humanitarian law and other such offences on the 21st of January. The first report of the Commission was submitted to the President on the 21st of July 2021. In preparing the second 107-page report, the Commission made a number of recommendations based on testimonies of 75 residents of the Jaffna and Kilinochchi districts who had faced the war and who had related experiences with the war. It has been recommended to immediately investigate the findings of the Paranagama Commission appointed in 2015 and to file a court case or provide compensation accordingly. Those who testified before the Commission requested the government's assistance to uplift their financial status, and this has also been recommended by the Commission. The President's Media Division said that the report stated that terrorists are not allowed to be commemorated, but the Commission has recommended to grant the right to commemorate the death of a relative occurred during the war in private. Chairman of the Commission, Supreme Court Judge AHMD Nawaz, said that the final report can be submitted to the President by next June.
The illegal encroachments into the Sea of Sri Lanka by Indian fishermen continue to rise daily. 6 Indian fishermen were arrested today.
Sri Lanka Navy seized an Indian dough with 6 Indian fishermen while they were poaching in Sri Lankan waters. They were arrested in the seas northwest of the Kovilan lighthouse in Jaffna. The 6 suspects have been remanded until the 4th of next month after they were produced before the Kites Magistrates Court today. The court ordered for the seized vessels to be kept in custody at the Mailiddi harbour. 50 Indian fishermen have been arrested in the last 20 days.
Representatives of the Tamil National Alliance met with Indian High Commissioner to Sri Lanka, Gopal Bagle, last evening. A communique issued by the Tamil National Alliance states that discussions were held regarding the visit of the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the Indian Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar. During the discussions, leader of the TNA R. Sambandhan said that the need for a political solution through devolution beyond the 13th Amendment will be highlighted during the Indian Prime Minister's visit to Sri Lanka.
19th of February marks the 65th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between the Russian Federation and the Democratic Socialist Republic of Sri Lanka.
Russian President Vladimir Putin has sent a message to President Gotabaya Rajapaksa and noted that the two countries, quote-unquote, have accumulated considerable experience of fruitful cooperation in various spheres. President Rajapaksa in a statement said he is looking forward to continue to work closely with Russia to further consolidate and expand the existing partnership between the two countries. Issuing a communique, the Russian embassy emphasized that bilateral relations between the two countries have always been developing in an environment of friendship, mutual understanding and amiability, based on equality, goodwill and respect for each other's interests. The embassy said the time-tested nature of the close Russian-Sri Lankan relations and their current status serve as an indicator that the bilateral political ties, adding that as mutual beneficial cooperations in the trade, economic, educational and tourist spheres, as well as people-to-people contacts are expected to grow and intensify in the future. On the eve of the 65th anniversary of Russia-Sri Lanka ties, Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakarova said February 19th will mark the 65th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between Russia and Sri Lanka. The two nations are bound by long-standing friendship.
The newly appointed ambassador of the United States to Sri Lanka, Julie Chang, stated that she is excited to represent the US in Sri Lanka.
In an introductory video, she pointed out that both countries have a lot in common, from democratic values to the shared commitment to safe and prosperous Indo-Pacific region.
Coming back to Sri Lanka is a dream come true. I first visited the island 10 years ago, and those memories are still vivid and fresh. Stepping into the role of ambassador is a tremendous honor, and I look forward to learning more about your country, its ancient heritage, dynamic culture, and modern complexities. America's spirit of innovation and entrepreneurship, together with many waves of immigrants from all over the world, is what has driven our country's economy for 2 centuries. That same spirit will shape my work as ambassador as we strengthen people-to-people ties with civil society, the business sector, and the youth of Sri Lanka. I'll do everything I can to learn about you.
In December 2021, the US Senate approved the nomination of Chang to be the new US ambassador of Sri Lanka after former ambassador Elena B. Teplitz concluded her tenure.
Many fractions point out that the surcharge tax will result in the collapse of many local companies.
The government published a bill proposing to impose a 25% surcharge tax on profits exceeding 2 billion rupees between April 2020 and 2021. According to the bill, the interpretation of a company is referred to the interpretation of a company in the Inland Revenue Act number 24 of 2017. According to the interpretation of a company in the Inland Revenue Act, the employees' funds too are subject to this tax. With the subsequent backlash against the employees' funds being included in the ambit of this tax, the finance minister assured that steps will be taken to exempt these funds from this tax. Why was this surcharge tax really imposed? Parties affiliated to the government had this to say regarding that. After the government came into power, the officials of the Treasury went and lied to Basil Rajapaksa. Since they didn't have money, they said that 70 billion can be taken at once. The finance minister published a gazette. Basil Rajapaksa tried his hand and we obliterated this attempt. He then had to go and withdraw this in the cabinet. If they are not listening to what we are saying, we must speak about this on the outside. Some say that these matters must be discussed internally. Sometimes it is useless speaking about these on the inside. We could do that if they are listening to us. How will this tax impact the employees of these companies and the general public as a whole? If a person who has already been taxed for his income is told, we are now going to tax you again for the profits you earned during the last 2 years, that is not fair. This tax that has been imposed is slapped on the profits earned in 2020 and 2021. Many of them have already paid a tax of 24%. Then they have paid 14% on dividends. That is a total of 38%. This 25% tax is imposed in addition to this 38%. That adds up to a total of 63%. How are they going to pay this tax? They do not have money stored in a safe at the bank to make these payments. These companies will then go ahead and obtain a loan from the banks to pay off these taxes. If they had an idea to expand their company or employ more people, they will not be able to do so. If the company hoped to pay their employees a bonus, they will now not be able to do that. This is a cheap political trick. They are trying to tax the money of the working people and distribute it among their henchmen and prepare for the provincial council elections. This is Basil Rajapaksa's plan. Do you not understand this? This is a cheap political trick.
ඉතිරි කිරීමට 125ක බදු ගහලා තමන්ගේ හෙන්චයිලාට ඒක දීලා ප්‍රාදේශීය සභා ඡන්දයට ලෑස්ති වෙන බැසිල් ඇමතුමාගේ වැඩපිළිවෙල මේ. ඒක තේරෙන්නේ නැද්ද? 2.50 ඡන්ද වැඩක් මේ කරන්නේ.
ලොකු සමාගම් වලින් ලාභ.
Although they say that the tax is to be imposed on the super rich companies, in the end they are charging this tax from the bonuses of the people. Before the government focuses on collecting even more taxes from these companies that are paying taxes, the government must look at how they can collect the tax from companies that have been evading taxes. There are areas of about 600 billion rupees in tax revenue that the government has not collected for the year 2021. Priority must be given to collect these taxes.
අදු මුදල් ටික අය කිරීමට ප්‍රමුඛතාවය දිය යුතුයි.
කාගේ හරි බෙල්ල මිරිකලා හරි සල්ලි හම්බ කරන්න.
The government has reached a point where they are trying to squeeze money from everyone. That policy will not work. We would like to ask the government to withdraw this immediately. This will result in local companies collapsing and the hundreds of thousands of employees at these companies being deprived of their benefits. On the other hand, there are many who evade taxes. The government is giving them tax amnesties. They are not going to be taxed. They are imposing more taxes on people who legally pay their taxes.
Several power cuts were reported from across the island today as well. When inquired on this, the Ceylon Electricity Board stated with the cloudy weather experienced across the island, there was a drop in the generation of solar power. The power outages were experienced in a number of phases since 2 this afternoon.
Sapugaskanda A and B power plants that shut down after they ran out of fuel were restarted today. Media spokesperson of the Ceylon Electricity Board, Andrew Navamani, said that the Sapugaskanda power plant was restored after they received the required stocks of fuel last night. The Sapugaskanda power plant contributed 108 megawatts of power to the national grid. The combined cycle power station at the Kalinithisa power plant was restarted this morning. The Matugama, Kolonava and Tulhiriya power plants continue to be inactive. The national grid is losing about 200 megawatts because of this. Meanwhile, Sri Lanka received 2.1 million litres of fuel this morning. The Ceylon Electricity Board said that the fuel can be used for power generation after 21 hours.
ඉදිරියේදී තව තවත් මේ බලශක්ති අර්බුදය තීව්‍ර වෙන බව දැනගෙන
all responsible parties must focus their attention on this issue as this power crisis could further aggravate in the future. The dollar shortage is connected to this power crisis. This is not the fault of the consumers. Those responsible for these matters must bear the full responsibility of this situation. However, since we are now facing the power crisis and since power is being cut off to our homes for a few hours, we need to prepare a plan for this.
කැපීමට සිදුවන නිසා ඒ වෙනුවෙන් අපි යම් සැලසුමකට යා යුතු වෙනවා.
Trade unions point out that the financial crisis within the Ceylon Electricity Board is further aggravating since fuel is being purchased from the Indian Oil Corporation.
The Ceylon Petroleum Corporation is the main supplier of fuel to the CEB, that is one of our state corporations. The CEB cannot pay off 95 billion rupees. Recently they had paid off about 20. And they have 80 more to be repaid. The minister himself is accepting this. In the meantime, the PUCSL is saying that discussions are underway to secure the purchase of fuel from the Indian Oil Corporation. We would like to ask if the CEB cannot pay for the fuel purchased from the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation, how can they pay for the fuel from the IOC? They will have to purchase it on credit. Just like a loan shark, the IOC would like to corner us into a debt trap like this. Secretary to the Ministry of Energy K.R. Olga said a ship carrying 37,500 metric tons of petrol has arrived at the port of Colombo. She stated that the consignment of fuel was provided by a Singaporean supplier and the ship arrived in Sri Lanka from India. She also said that a letter of credit has been opened for payments relating to the stock of petrol for a period of 30 days. Meanwhile, another ship carrying another 37,500 metric tons of diesel is scheduled to arrive in Sri Lanka tomorrow. The Ministry of Energy added that it had made the relevant payments to the Central Bank of Sri Lanka in rupees. Meanwhile, sources from the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation said the distribution of fuel received earlier is still ongoing. Fuel queues were not seen in many places today. However, Newsfirst also received reports about certain filling stations that experienced a shortage in fuel. Governor of the central bank said that Sri Lanka's fuel price revision is now long overdue. In a tweet, he said prices of petrol and diesel are in some instances less than half the price of that of some countries in the region.
The Maharagama Apeksha Hospital has been experiencing a shortage of medicines and drugs for a certain period of time. Meanwhile, issues due to the shortage of drugs in hospitals treating cancer patients have aggravated the situation.
Apeksha Hospital in Maharagama is the premier treatment centre for cancer patients in the country. However, patients who come to the hospital for treatment for several months point out that there is a shortage of certain medicine that they need, while they are being given prescriptions to go and purchase the relevant medicine from the private sector.
I have to obtain medicine once a month depending on my condition. And so far the medicine I need has not been made available at the hospital since January. So my condition has worsened.
Most patients were reported to have been turned away from the hospital pharmacy due to the medicine they need being unavailable. However, when inquired from the director of the Maharagama Apeksha Hospital, Dr. Vijita Gunasekara, as to whether there is a shortage of such drugs and certain vaccines, he said that drugs and vaccines prescribed to patients are available at the hospital, although he added that there is a delay in receiving some medicine that are imported, especially for each patient. Meanwhile, patients at the Badula General Hospital also say that there is a shortage of certain vaccines and medicine given to cancer patients.
According to my condition, an operation cannot be performed as I have to be medicated to reduce the cancer. However, I have not received the medicine for over 6 weeks. Usually they inject 300 milligrams of drug into my body. When I inquired from the pharmacies around Maharagama, they said that 1 ounce of the drug costs about 1,300 rupees. I do not have the means to buy 300 ounces of the medicine, but the nurses at the clinic keeps on turning us away, saying that they do not have the medicine.
There is a massive shortage in medicine. Cancer patients do not have medicine. Heart patients and people suffering with high blood pressure don't have medicine. There is no thyroxine for patients. How can the people survive amidst a medicine shortage? Free healthcare is a responsibility of the government. The government claims that there is no dollars to purchase medicine. Ranasinghe Premadasa provided people with food and uniforms even during the war. Economic growth was at its peak at the time. During a time of great terror, when there were 2 active wars, was there a shortage of medicine? But today there is no medicine because they have no dollars. Can this country develop with a government that is unable to generate dollars? Can such a government solve the country's problems?
ඩොලර් නිපදවන්නට උත්පාදනය කරන්න බැරි ක්‍රමවේදයක් නැති මේ වගේ රාජ්‍ය පාලනයක් තියාගෙන මේ රට ගොඩනගන්න පුළුවන්. මේ රටේ ප්‍රශ්න විසඳන්න පුළුවන්.
The opposition leader expressed his views during the Samagi Jana Balawegiya Husmak event held at the Bokundara MOH in Piliyandala. A 3-wheeler was donated to the MOH during the event.
The World Health Organization says the hospitalization and deaths owing to COVID-19 continue to rise.
Omicron is not quote-unquote mild. It is less severe than Delta, but we are still seeing significant numbers of hospitalizations of Omicron. We're seeing significant numbers of deaths, as we've mentioned already. It is not the common cold. It is not influenza. You know, we just have to be really careful right now. And I think, again, some of the narrative and the language that's out there suggesting, you know, I might as well just get infected with Omicron is dangerous. Do what you can to avoid exposure. Doesn't mean lock yourself away. It doesn't mean lock down in countries, but do what you can to avoid exposure and infection.
The graduation ceremony of the CFPS Law School for the year 2021 was held at the BMICH in Colombo this morning.
Minister of Justice, President's Counsel Ali Sabri attended the event as a chief guest, while the guest of honor was Dr. Sampath Punchiheva, the Dean of Faculty of Law at the University of Colombo. Students of CFPS Law School who completed their LLB degree from the University of London were felicitated at the event. Shalom Benedict was the valedictorian of the graduating batch of 2021.
Passengers took matters into their own hands against the conductor and the driver of a bus. The bus was being driven dangerously and the lives of the passengers on board was put at risk.
A private bus plying from Trincomalee to Colombo had obstructed the road in a manner that a CTB bus travelling along the same route could not overtake it. The passengers on board the CTB bus, who were patient till then, intervened in the matter. The driver and conductor of the private bus, who ran into the police station to escape from the passengers who pursued them, were later arrested. According to our correspondent, the driver of the CTB bus is being treated at the Consolidate base hospital.
From that, we bring to a close this edition of Primetime News on TV1. For details of the stories and much more, simply log on to our website www.newsfirst.lk. For the Newsfirst, the voice of the people, I'm Martin Sathinesan, along with our sign language interpreter Taraka Gabriel. You take care and good night.